Welcome to It Started Somewhere, the podcast that discovers the history behind the familiar. I'm Shaimond, and today we're diving into the story of one of America's most important institutions, the United States Congress. You've probably heard about Congress in the news, seen it in movies, or maybe even visited the Capitol in Washington, D.C. But how did it start? Why does it have two chambers? And how has it changed over the years? Let's get into it. Congress is the legislative branch of the United States government, the part that makes the laws. It's set up in Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution and is designed to be the voice of the people. But Congress isn't just one group. It's made up of two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Let's break down each chamber. The House of Representatives, 435 members, with each state's number of representatives based on its population. Members serve 2-year terms. To run, you have to be at least 25 years old, a U.S. citizen for 7 years, and live in the state you represent. The House is meant to represent the people directly, so its rules and structure make it more responsive to public opinion. The Senate, 100 members, 2 from each state, no matter the size. Senators serve 6-year terms, with 1/3 up for election every 2 years. You need to be at least 30 years old, a U.S. citizen for 9 years, and a resident of your state. The Senate was designed to be more deliberative and insulated from the swings of public opinion. No bill can become law without passing both the House and the Senate. In other words, these two chambers have to work together, even if they don't always agree. The story of Congress begins before the United States was even a country. Back in the late 1700s, the 13 colonies were trying to figure out how to govern themselves after breaking away from Britain. Their first attempt, the Articles of Confederation, created a weak single-chamber Congress that couldn't tax, regulate trade, or enforce laws. It was frankly a mess. So in 1787, delegates met in Philadelphia to fix things. The big debate? How should states be represented? Large states wanted representation based on population. Small states feared being overpowered and wanted equal representation. The solution was the Connecticut Compromise, also known as the Great Compromise. Congress would have two chambers. The House would be based on population, and the Senate would give every state an equal voice. This structure was inspired by both the British Parliament and colonial legislatures. The framers wanted to balance the power of the people with the stability of the states. The House would be the grand depository of the democratic principle, as George Mason put it, while the Senate would be smaller, more deliberative, and a check on the passions of the moment. Congress hasn't stayed the same since 1789. Here are some of the biggest changes. Direct election of senators. Originally, state legislatures chose senators. That changed with the 17th Amendment in 1913, which gave the people the right to elect senators directly. Committee system. Over time, Congress developed a complex system of committees to handle the growing workload. Most bills now start in committees before reaching the full House or Senate. Reform Acts, the legislative reorganization. Acts of 1946 and 1970 modernized Congress, reorganizing committees and making the process more transparent. Televised debates. In the 1970s, Congress began televising its floor debates, increasing transparency and public engagement. War Powers and Budget Acts. In response to presidential overreach, Congress passed the War Powers Act 1973 and the Budget Act 1974 to reclaim some of its authority. Modernization. In the 21st century, Congress has embraced digital tools, improved transparency, and adapted to remote work, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Congress has seen many attempts at reform, some successful, some not. Reform committees, multiple times, Congress has formed special committees to propose big changes, like overhauling legislative rules or making the institution more effective. These efforts often run into political roadblocks, but show a willingness to adapt. Recent modernization. Since 2019, there's been a modernization golden age in the House, with bipartisan efforts to update technology, improve staff expertise, and make legislative data more accessible. Calls for major reform. Proposals have included term limits, changes to the filibuster, and even structural changes to how Congress operates. Most of these efforts face strong resistance. Change is hard when tradition runs deep. Congress is always evolving. In recent years, it's faced challenges from political polarization, public distrust, and the rapid pace of technological change. But there are signs of hope. Bipartisan modernization efforts, new digital tools, and a renewed focus on transparency and accountability. As new generations enter Congress, they bring fresh ideas and push for reforms to make the institution more responsive to the needs of the country. The future of Congress will likely involve more technology, greater transparency, and ongoing debates about how best to represent the people and the states. Congress started somewhere, in a hot, crowded room in Philadelphia, born out of compromise and debate. Today, it's still a place of argument and negotiation, but also of adaptation and resilience. The story of Congress is the story of America itself, always unfinished, always striving to form a more perfect union. Thanks for joining me on It Started Somewhere. I'm Shaimond. I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe and rate the podcast. It makes a difference.